everyone. Welcome back to our weekly wellness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rebekah, and today we have joining us Dr. Amanda Cairncross, who is our new DVM Ambassador. So welcome, Dr. Amanda.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Dr. Amanda's journey in vet med and her experience with wellness and her new DVM Ambassador role. So super excited to chat through all of that with you.
I know, I'm excited too.
Yeah, so just to start off, I would love to know what drew you into veterinary medicine?
Yeah, mine is, it's a little cliche because, people are like, oh, I always loved animals, which I
Naturally
did. I always loved them. But I feel like my mom was very big into kind of cultivating how nature works. We had ladybug setups. We watched, caterpillars to butterflies, tadpoles to frogs. She was a trooper. I was obsessed with sea monkeys, which are
aren't we all at some point?
Ridiculous. I think that was the 90s. It was like peak 90s.
Yes.
And then I think it was like at the Discovery store.
Yeah.
If I remember.
Oh my gosh.
That store.
Yeah, core memory. That's great.
And I'd go there all the time, and I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like nature is amazing. Mm-hmm. And then my dad's a physician, so medicine was really in our family growing up.
Right.
Our dinner discussions were probably like gross, but I never knew. Not to us, not to veterinarians,
right?
But it was very normal,
right?
And so I loved science. I loved biology, and so I loved that veterinary medicine combined both of those together.
Yeah.
I also really loved that veterinary medicine advocates to the more vulnerable population that really can't speak for themselves, and that was another big thing that drew me in.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you had a lot of really great exposures to a lot of different things as a kid, and that vet med kind of was able to combine all of those into a career for you. And do you feel like that's the case, that ended up being?
It was. So when I was like 15 or 16, I interned with, I would say, my mentor now.
Yeah.
He did my white coat at LSU vet school.
That's awesome.
But there were a few things this is embarrassing to say, but blood really made me nervous. So I had to get through that.
Yeah.
Passed out during the second surgery I saw. It was hot in there.
It gets really hot in surgery,
really hot.
To be fair.
And he was just like, can we have Coke in here? Because I was like, I can't see anything. And he was like, oh no.
Okay, so gross dinner conversations does not translate.
It did not translate for me
to the surgical suite.
It was more of a visual thing for me.
Gotcha.
But obviously got over that.
Yeah.
But I also interned at a newscasting station.
Oh, wow.
So completely different set of skills.
Yeah.
So I was kind of looking at broadcasting, but always went back to veterinary medicine and
that's awesome.
the animals.
Yeah. So of course, here at My Pets Wellness, we really emphasize well-being and wellness, both of our for our patients, but also for all of our team members and for the industry at large. We feel like we're really advocating for veterinarians and technicians in vet med. So what, in your kind of experience, has wellness been in the veterinary field, and how has wellness changed in veterinary medicine?
And I know it was probably even worse because, for the older doctors out there.
Right.
So I've been practicing almost 10 years. When I think about that, I'm like, our 10-year reunion's in May.
Just a number.
But when I first started, my very first job, you actually had to find someone to cover you if you were sick. So if you're ill, you had to find coverage or you had to come in. So I vividly remember working with a doctor. She had the flu and she had to come in. She, you're exposing everyone. Right. She also felt horrible. So she was asleep on the radiology table, and I just felt horrible for her because she needs to be at home sleeping.
Exactly.
And it's not helping anyone. No. And so I think COVID especially taught us to slow down. If you're sick, you're sick. Right. You are exposing everyone else. It's better for you to take some time, recover, because you make mistakes when you don't feel good.
Exactly.
It's just not a conducive environment. and then you take out other team members. So
Exactly.
it's just something that I have really liked, because even watching my dad, I mean, he prides himself that he called in sick once in his 35 years of practice.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but you also went to work with like the stomach flu, which
Right.
is not great.
No. Right.
So not wonderful.
Especially right now during COVID, everyone at home's cringing like, oh.
Yes, exactly. And this was years ago. But
Right.
it's something that we've all learned. And it was almost like a feat, you know, like well, I never call in. I always go to work. And that's not a great mindset. And I'm glad it's slowly changing. Even at conferences, you go and there's actual like mental health, you know, CE. And one time I went to like 3 or 4 hours, and it was nice to see it actually being brought. And the other big push, and I like that My Pets Wellness is doing it as well, is bringing it to the public. Yeah. Because I think that's where it does need to go, to kind of just educate the public of what veterinary medicine is going through right now.
Right.
And we just have so many issues that are plaguing, you know, our colleagues.
Right.
And we really need to push back against the burnout and the compassion fatigue. So I love that this company has a lot of things they implement, like have Dr. Rodney on staff, the mental health professional, and having the weekly wellness podcast and wellness rounds and everything, to really make people feel comfortable talking about these topics, making mental health not so taboo.
Absolutely, yes. Shining a spotlight on it, right? Like it's not taboo. A lot of us, you know, have challenges in vet med. A lot of people, I think, during COVID have had challenges with mental health. That's an understatement. But I think it's really brought to the surface a lot of the underlying challenges that we've had historically in vet med that maybe just kind of were brushed under the rug. Yeah, exactly. So now we're kind of recognizing, oh, this is not sustainable. There are things like not calling out in 35 years and coming in sick, or from, you know, not just a physical wellness standpoint, but from, you were mentioning, a mental wellness standpoint, and burnout and compassion fatigue. So I love that that's becoming, I think, more and more discussed and more emphasized in the workplace. And I feel like veterinarians and technicians are also prioritizing that more when they are looking for positions and considering, you know, where do I want to work? What is the best balance for me personally? I think those types of conversations are coming more to the forefront, which is awesome.
And even seeing like mental health days offered in different places like that, I've never seen that. I was like, is this an actual thing? Yeah. So just having the awareness, I think, is half the battle.
Absolutely.
Just reaching out and advocating for you know, your staff.
Absolutely.
Have you heard about our weekly wellness rounds? If you're a veterinarian, you know more than anyone how tough life can get. Whether it's dealing with difficult clients, communication challenges on your team, issues in your personal life, or even just a busy week where you feel like you haven't been able to stop and actually catch your breath. There are so many things that come into our lives that can impact our mental health. So that's why we've started our weekly wellness rounds. This is a judgment-free place to come talk through your experiences with other veterinary professionals who get it. These conversations are moderated by our Director of Wellness and Personal Growth, Dr. Rodney Robertson, who is also a licensed mental health professional. Weekly wellness rounds take place on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time, and all of these meetings are virtual, so there's no need to stress about adding yet another trip to your busy week. You can register and join our weekly wellness rounds by visiting our DVM support website at mypetswellness.net/DVM support. So join us for weekly wellness rounds on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central. We hope to see you there.
And so you, of course, are joining us as our DVM Ambassador. We are super excited to have you on the team. I'm curious, what interested you about the DVM Ambassador role?
It was a completely different role that I had not seen before.
Right.
I think it is so cool to have a doctor in more of a recruiting role. So you're speaking to a doctor. Right. So they know what you're up against, what you're looking for. Yeah. And also, I really wanted a company that focused on mental health
Right.
for their staff, down the techs, the kennel staff, not just the doctors, everyone.
Right.
And actually implement it. Didn't make you watch videos or anything like that, like forced engagement. But, offering, My Pets Wellness is offering community events to try and get the doctors engaged in that area, and to really have, like we talked about, the weekly check-ins with Dr. Rodney and rounds, and where you can talk about anything. It doesn't have to be veterinary medicine, but also the DVM support network, having actual resources to help is, I think, a big thing. And I really wanted to be able to speak about a company that I was proud of and proud to be a part of, and actually help doctors find places where they're actually cared for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you have had some of those experiences that you haven't necessarily felt that.
Yes.
So it sounds like that's kind of a natural progression of like, all right, I've identified this is important and now I get to be a part of it.
Yes, exactly.
So that's awesome. So you mentioned a couple of things earlier just about like supporting your team members and, kind of more of a, I would say, structural approach to wellness. What can we be doing to better support veterinarians, better support technicians out in practice?
I think a big one is, and it's slowly coming to the forefront with different kind of personality quizzes and things like that, but know how people like to be appreciated.
Yeah.
Because even in romantic relationships, professional relationships, people receive love and appreciation differently.
Right.
Like my husband and I, very different. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't appreciate this?
Exactly.
This is exactly what I would want. But, you have to learn how people feel appreciated, or they won't take it that way.
Right.
They even can be resentful, like, well, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important to know specifically, because people also like a general appreciation. I think they like, but it doesn't mean as much if it's, specifically tailored. They're like, oh, you really thought about it.
Yeah.
I think with My Pets Wellness, the generous PTO, just having time off to disconnect, be a real, like, we understand you're a human being and you have interest, but also like your veterinary interest, having the unlimited CE is awesome, because then you can really generate and cultivate your passion, and really work on that and not have a budget and watch everything you're doing. So I think that is really cool. But then also having the resources there to, if you need help, then not having a stigma to reach out.
Exactly. Yeah, and that employee assistance program, and like you mentioned, Dr. Rodney, Director of Wellness, who's a licensed therapist.
Yes, that's awesome.
Always helpful.
But
something I'm hearing from kind of what you're saying is more of an individualized approach.
Yes.
It very much is about recognizing the individual and what their preferences are, what their goals are, what their needs are, because you mentioned PTO for personal time, but also like professional interests and professional goals. And that is variable with each individual. Maybe somebody is, much more interested in their professional development at a given time than they are their personal development. So I think tuning into your team members and your colleagues and realizing like, this person is a whole human, has different priorities and interests, has different ways of feeling appreciation. I think it's super important. So I like that, the more tailored kind of approach. And speaking of kind of, work life and, personal life and things that people enjoy doing outside of work, what would you say are some of your hobbies and interests?
I definitely was able to cultivate more hobbies like 5 years into practice. Because it was like all practice, very budgeted. So now I get to explore hobbies more. I do like to work out. That's a big mental stress reliever for me. That really helps me set the tone for the day and helps me carry my routine wherever I am. Because with this job, this is new to me, traveling, and so sticking with the routine can be helpful as well. But I love to read. I love traveling. That's one of my favorite things to do. I love
awesome.
being in the culture, trying the food, but also my big kind of interest and hobby that I started about 5 years now is acting. Completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. I was so scared when I was up there. I was like sweating. And I was like, why did I even do this to myself? This is a terrible idea. Because I was introverted. It was hard for me to.
You were past tense?
I feel like original introvert.
Yes,
but it's easier for me to reach out to people now.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a hybrid.
Okay. All right. I respect that. Yeah.
I'm great one-on-one in large groups.
Yes.
Still, it's a little difficult.
You got to bring out that acting.
I got to bring it out. But
Absolutely.
it is improv. Still hate improv, but it's really helpful. It is very, very helpful. Thinking on your feet, doing things that make you uncomfortable because that's how you grow.
Yeah.
But it's such a creative outlet that there's a lot of emotions you don't get to really feel during practice. There are so many days where I would be euthanizing and then have to go straight to a puppy appointment or something else, and you just don't get that time.
Right.
So it's nice to be able to process and kind of filter them in a different way.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you've been doing that for about 5 years now. Did you feel like that experience impacted your clinical experience and how you came across as a doctor?
Absolutely. That's a really awesome question because it's true. And actually my husband was like, your personality like changed for the better, like it came out more. I was able to relate to clients better. Sometimes I would pretend I was in a scene if it was just like not going great.
Right.
And I was just like, all right, and cut. Like it's fine. Like you did a great villain job.
Exactly.
So things like that was helpful.
Yeah.
Just taking breaks. Like I would just this was a very sad appointment. Like the other appointment can wait 5 minutes. Why just take a breather?
Yeah.
But yeah, it really changed the way I related, to clients and made it easier to engage with them. And so yeah, it was really interesting how it changed.
That is super interesting. I wonder if that's kind of a common experience among people who do improv or do acting and then see it translate into their real life or get more skills to be able to.
I think it does because you have to act convincingly. You have to be a good listener and active listening where you're really hearing the other person and responding. It also, you have to be empathetic. You have to have empathy for the other person. And I think sometimes we can lose that, especially if it's been a rough day. They're not, listening or they're having a bad day. I think it's extremely easy to lose empathy for people.
It definitely can be, especially if you are pushed to your limit already. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for
this was awesome.
chatting through your experience. And we're, again, very happy to have you on the team. Super excited to see all the wonderful things that you'll do. But and thank you all at home for tuning in today. We appreciate your support, and we hope to see you next time at our weekly wellness rounds. Thanks, y'all.